Hey everyone, and welcome back to Gratuity. Thank you to everyone who has reached out, watched the show, been on the show, gotten in touch. We really appreciate all the support from the community. If you want to get involved, have a story to share, please email us at gratuity@tastemade.com. We are so excited to be joined by chef and author Ned Baldwin. He is a chef at The Houseman, and he just came out with a new cookbook, How to Dress an Egg, Surprising and Simple Ways to Cook Dinner. It is an absolute joy to read. It's a great mix of text, photographs, illustrations. It's 20 different chapters. It's 20 different ingredients, how to cook them basically, and how to step them up. It is going to be one of the staples in your kitchen, I guarantee. If you are stuck during quarantine on what to cook, order this book now. It is so fantastic and flavorful. So please sit back and enjoy some Gratuity. Ned, welcome to Gratuity. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and congratulations on the release of How to Dress an Egg. It's a really great cookbook. I really loved it. Really fun, really playful, very timely, given the subject of the cooking, of building those cooking foundations. And obviously not exactly what you thought you would be doing during the release of the book, but how do you feel? How are you celebrating the release?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of online stuff, needless to
Sure.
say. Instagram, we're doing some Instagram Live, podcasts, any way we can get the word out. And I suppose probably it would be a whole mix of things under any circumstance. It's a little more unexpected, and some of it's a little sad, but I think it's a good book for the time. It's really a book that intends to teach people how to cook.
You drive that message home from the very opening quote, the Judith Jones quote. I talked about cooking as an art form and about understanding the fundamentals. Why do you think that's important to really understand the fundamentals of cooking while you're getting into the kitchen, while you're starting to develop your own style?
I'm going to draw a distinction between the fundamentals and just like learning how to do a couple of things that you really know how to do, because I think it's an important distinction in terms of what this book is. Some books are like Jack Rappan's book, The La Technique, or Christopher and Melissa Hersheimer Hamilton, who just did a Canal House book that's really intends to be sort of encyclopedic, or like this book shows you how to cook everything. Mm-hmm. My book doesn't show you how to cook everything. It shows you how to cook 20 things, and it's sort of like a snapshot. So it's I think it's a smaller bite actually, and a little bit more atmospheric. And the idea really is like, I mean, I think this is just universal. Like, you learn how to change a tire really well, and you can change a lot of tires. You learn how to draw a hand. All of a sudden, you can draw a bunch of hands. You learn how to cook a leek beautifully. You're going to find that you're cooking a lot of leeks and doing a lot of different things with them. And so that's really what we do with the book. 20 different things like that leek.
The book is great because it takes a lot of the guesswork or a lot of the intimidation, not just from cooking, but even going to when you go to the farmer's market, or if you get a CSA box, or you're maybe having to be flexible with your cooking, you're not scared anymore. You're like, okay, like this is a root vegetable, this is a protein. Okay, I understand how to do a pork shoulder. I can do a steak. And then if I have to wiggle a little bit, I go like, okay, I have an idea of like the heat, the time, the prep that goes into everything that's in front of me.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty loose, I mean, I think, like I learn a couple of things and I'm like, hang on to them and try to do them right. And then otherwise, I'm just very loose, and I hope the book reflects that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a looseness, but then there's also an elevated quality to it as well. I love that rumor that you always hear about high-end chefs of haute cuisine have you cook an egg a certain way, whether it's like the perfect omelet or the perfect scramble. And I sort of got that from How to Dress an Egg from the title, because it was like, oh, like an egg seems so simple. We've all had eggs. And so you can make a scrambled egg, but then you can make a restaurant-worthy 3 Michelin star egg. What is it about that blending of the accessibility and the high end that makes cooking so exciting for you?
I'm going to start just because Peter Kaminsky, my co-writer, was concerned that because of the title, which we both love, people would think that this is an egg cookery book, which it does include a little bit of egg cooking, because I love your question, because there's nothing I love more than cooking eggs.
Sure.
But it's not an egg cookery book. We do teach you how to boil an egg in it. So I mean, for my own part, like as a restaurant cook, when I'm wearing that hat, like I don't trust cooks who don't like cooking eggs. And I know this is wrong, but I even struggle to trust cooks who don't like to eat eggs. I mean, that's probably not fair because everybody's
Line in
got
the
their
sand, just a
stick.
straight line.
Yeah, I just think eggs are so critical. You know, cooking's about putting something, well, it's about a million things and a lot of different things happen. But if you're cooking in a pan with heat, it's about putting something in the pan, it transforming into something else with the addition of heat and salt or fat or whatever. And eggs transform like, wow, they transform really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really attentive to your pan and to your fat and to your heat. And so I think that this test that you're describing, a chef is watching a cook's attunement to what's in the pan. It's pretty empirical, I think. I mean, so that attunement is something that you can develop, but if you don't start with a little bit of it, you probably are going to move away from cooking after not too long. I don't know. I think you could get pretty far in the restaurant world and not have had to learn how to cook an omelet. Weirdly, I think the world is a little bit in that regard. More likely to learn how to sous vide an egg, which is weird. But you know, back in the day, it would also be like, oh, did you spend 2 years learning how to make a perfect omelet? Which I actually did have the opportunity to do that for 4 years at Prune, cooking brunch there. Fantastic.
Okay.
It's great.
Yeah, and she has that legendary passage in her memoir about brunch and the headiness of like what goes into really pulling off what some might consider like not the highlight of the week, but you can really understand like it is such a crazy adrenaline rush of a service. We could bring up a good point of the shifting fundamentals of what it means to cook now, right? Like there is the perfect omelet or the perfect scrambled egg or the perfect consommé, which is very classic. And now it's sort of like, let's throw out the rules. It's whatever. It's postmodern. Right. But to you and to this book, what do you consider the fundamental building blocks of cooking?
I really want to make it kind of easy for people. That's the purpose of the book, you know. And I don't think I could write a book that would be boring for people who love cooking because I'm so enthralled with it myself. But also, we really did want to write a book that was useful for people who didn't know how to cook at all. If you want to take this book and learn each of the basic recipes. So just quickly, the book is 20 chapters. Yep. Each chapter starts with a basic recipe, and the basic recipe, with a few exceptions, is an ingredient like a carrot, a little bit of oil, and salt, or it could be water. And we're pretty specific about the salt part, not in like an annoying way, but in a way that helps you develop the flavors of the food.
Yeah.
And so we show you how to do that one thing, and we recommend that you, in almost every case, that one thing is delicious all by itself. You could put a squeeze of lemon on it and, you know, just put it on the table for dinner and be fine. But then we show you subsequent recipes, like 4 or so, 3 to 5, I think, per chapter, depending on whatever, ways to dress that basic ingredient up, which is why we named the book what we named it. More elaborate is a big word, but, you know, contextualized or, you know, whatever, dressed up, fun stuff. You could learn all 20 basic recipes and you'd know how to cook a lot of stuff. You could also just get a couple of them under your belt and, you know, that's your jam. That's what you do when people come over for dinner. Like if you learn the lamb rack and get that chapter under control, you know, you're gonna, I'm not sure if we're allowed to swear in this, but, you know, you're gonna look like you're gonna be great. That chapter, lock that down. Or the roasted chicken chapter, whichever. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of this food is really everything from making just like your staple. I'm cooking these meals, 21 meals a week that we're in right now, and some of them are like celebratory. We've cooked 20 meals that we've all just sort of eaten, and it's been a thing. And then here's a Saturday night, light the candles, pour the wine, put the chicken in, you know, gussy up the kitchen a little bit. And I think you're going to see that more. I mean, you know, there is such this distinction between like, I'm a chef, I'm a home cook, but I think where we are with the pandemic and how much people are getting in the kitchen, you're going to see this new wave of home cooks that are going to come out much better cooks at the end of this. And how does that inspire you? Like, how does that inspire you that people are going to be at home and there's obviously like less rules and a lot more free form that you can do at home that maybe you can't do when you're a chef in a restaurant that needs to be so consistent day in, day out?
Well, we're working on a different schedule here in this era that we're in now. I mean, you and I talked before a little bit about the difference between celebration cooking and celebration eating, which we do to a greater or lesser extent whenever we go out to a restaurant. I mean, if you come to my restaurant, Houseman, I'm going to cook you food that hopefully is just peak flavors. Like, you should feel like there's some explosions, good ones in your mouth while you're eating. Really exciting stuff. I'm not sure I do cook that way for myself all the time because I'm sort of a gastronomical thrill seeker. I want that. I'm finding my family doesn't want that all the time, and maybe that's where I'm headed. Like, if 21 meals a week, only a couple of them can be with the cymbals and the drums and the horns blaring.
Right.
We're
rah.
A different way where there's a little bit more utilitarian vibe going on. I think that's important. I think, as it pertains to the book and these basic recipes, a lot of the basic recipes show you how to cook something that you can eat in different ways over a few days. So you can do, and I'm finding myself doing this here. I did it just 2 days ago. Like, I do a big cook. I cook a bunch of stuff. I did, like, we have this pork shoulder recipe where it's so insanely simple. You just salt it to a certain amount.
Yep.
Super clear in the book, but not worth talking about now. And then you just let it rest for a couple of days in the fridge, and then put it in a pot with a lid really tight, whether you need to seal it with foil or whatever, and then cook it in a low temperature oven. That's it. That's the whole damn thing. You take it out when it's done. We tell you how to do that. So, and it's delicious, and you can eat it. I do it torn or sliced, or we have sandwiches with it, all kinds of stuff in the book. I did that same cooking method with a lamb shoulder that I randomly found in my freezer. We're eating it in a bunch of different ways. I'm eating it with lentils. We're eating it hot. We're eating it, grill a piece, whatever. And we'll eat it in different ways for a few days. And so this is a thing that I think people are contending with cooking at home right now. Like, do you want to eat the same? My family, I'm complaining a lot about the way my family eats. Probably should not be doing that. They don't want to eat the same meal twice, So I got to find ways to cook a thing and then make it, fabulous and interesting a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, you do strike that balance in the book about having meat be there, but then also the importance of vegetables. And then there's an overlap as well, where there's a bit of a call and response. And I think during this time of cooking, you can make a big pork shoulder and then use that just as an accent for like a big roasted vegetable dish. Totally. What is the importance of really understanding how to cook meat and vegetables and then striking that balance when you are looking about how to meal plan for a week?
Well, I did the same thing with vegetables. I mean, I called out the lamb shoulder because it was a fun thing to cook. But at the same time that I was doing that, I cooked Swiss chard, broccoli rabe, beets, green beans, which are not in season. I guess none of this stuff's really in season right now, but we gotta eat our greens,
Yeah.
And so I've got all that stuff cooked and ready to rock. And I'll sing a song that's not a new song, but is one that we should all be singing and thinking about, and then whatever it takes. I think it's the discipline to change the way we eat a little bit. I'll just say for myself, I like to eat less meat these days, a lot less. So, red meat once or twice a week, and sort of shift the focus of the meal off the meat. After I left Prune and before opening Houseman, I did a lot of hard thinking about what it is to eat and live on vegetables and meat, and what it looks like on the plate sculpturally, and how to shift the focus a little bit. And it's a tricky thing. I think our whole society is gradually moving a bit in that direction.
Yeah, and look, we don't have to spend really too much, if any, time on any disruption in the supply chain, but we are looking at a possible disruption to how much meat will be available or what types of meat will be available in the near to immediate future. And so understanding that vegetables, which are about to be in the bounty everywhere, at least in America, and how to coax the flavor out of them and how to feel satiated by them, it's an important thing to really know, and to not know, but just really embrace. If you've never really roasted beets or really grilled leeks, or, seen what you can do with some waxy potatoes, it can be really ethereal. It can be really just as much as satisfying as a pale chicken breast, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we do this in the restaurant, and I without even really thinking about it, can continue to do this through the book. Like in each of the vegetable chapters, the first thing is how to cook this thing beautifully.
Yep.
And then the subsequent dishes they're not vegetable sides. That's a term that I really don't like at all. They are plated vegetable dishes, that are contrasts of textures and flavors and sizes of things and roasty stuff and acidity. It's a fully realized plate with
Yeah.
vegetables only on it.
Yeah. When you get to the vegetable section in the book, you're just like not even really thinking about the meat. You just, especially with the beautiful photography and things like that, you go, I'll take that as my main. That's good. Like, just serve that up. Moving away from the ingredients a little bit, you do offer some really good advice about measuring and prepping and tasting, taking the temperature. You sort of have a couple golden rules. One of my favorite being no dicing, because, that's sort of just, again, we can go back to like methodology of cooking, but dicing is really sort of those like, do we need to do it? Do we not need to do it? But why did you land on some certain bullet points when it came to the advice that people really need to be thinking about to elevate their cooking or to understand cooking?
There aren't that many facts, and I'm the first one to try to blow them out of the water. There are a few. There's a chapter about how to make chicken soup. I didn't know this for years, and as a restaurant cook and as someone who passionately read every book I could find about cooking, whether it was about restaurant cooks or home cooks, it took a long time to figure out what the difference was between soup and stock. Stock you make without salt because you might reduce it. You don't know how much you're going to reduce, its volume. And if you put a certain amount of salt in, when it's a gallon, and then you reduce that volume to a quart, things get pretty salty. It's reasonable not to put salt in it. Soup, for me, chicken soup, I like a really clean, bright chicken soup that doesn't have any reduction or roast. So I don't roast the bones, I don't roast the vegetables, I just put it all in the pot. And because I know I'm not going to reduce it, and one of the reasons I'm not going to reduce it is when you reduce the liquid and the solids and sugars in the liquid burn a little bit on the side of the pan or brown, and that confers a roasty flavor, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just not what I'm looking for. So I want the same volume. If I start with a gallon, I want to end with a gallon. And that means that I can put salt in at the beginning. And when you put salt in at the beginning, that salt extracts, I think, more flavor from the bones and the vegetables while it's cooking. Yep. We learned that, this gets kind of boring, but we learned that humans actually like a pretty specific amount of salt. They like 1.1 to 1.5% salt by weight of whatever it is you're cooking, whether that's meat or water. You're adding salt to water. That's what your mouth is going to kind of want. There are some rare sort of, I don't know anything that falls below that, unless you just don't want to eat a lot of salt or don't want to eat salt at all, whatever. Sausage, salami gets into 1.7%. So knowing that, then we're able to give really specific amounts of salt. We didn't do it in percentages, or I think we gave that just because some geeks would kind of get into it. But
it's a great tip.
Yeah, we gave it in tablespoons, so quarts, I think. So, that's like one rule. We did, using a similar concept, we give advice about how to salt the chicken. So getting salt right makes your food better. Knowing that when you make a fish stock, that fish bones start to get funky and stinky and not nice after cooking for around 40 minutes. That's a fact. You should never really cook them beyond that. If we got that in there. And actually, for the chicken soup, going back to that, an hour and a half is what I've found. If you cook chicken bones beyond an hour and a half, which you do for a stock, wouldn't be that weird. They start to smell a little sulfuric and funny. So, I give concrete times for some of that stuff that I think is helpful.
And it's nice to be able to hang your hat on those, like, know this. And it's just, you've curated it, because sometimes with cookbooks, it can be so much information that you're just trying to remember, and you're so busy trying to cook and looking at the book and trying to cook and looking at the book that you're not even enjoying yourself. You're just worried if you got it wrong. And this book is like, here we go, learn these 3 or 4 things and then just sort of make it your own. Like, it's okay.
I want to be more id than super ego. I put it that way. Like, I want to be like, hey man, this tastes great, and here's how you make it taste greater. Like, you're gonna love this. That's what I want to be. And if like, okay, just make sure you set a timer or something so it's been half an hour. Do that. So I don't want to be, and I mean, sometimes books function well for me like this, and I've had chefs who function well for me like this, where they're like the voice of my brain and be like, gotta do it like this, trying to like. Certainly, especially in cookbooks for civilians, I do not want to be that guy, and I don't want to read that guy.
No, I don't want to read that. Like, it's tough because your eyes just start to glaze over and you're like, okay. This was nice to look at once. It goes on the shelf and then that's just where it sits for forever. Like, you want your cookbook, when you go to someone's house, when you see it, you want it to be stained, soaked, just beaten up, dog-eared. Like, you want to see it used. You don't want to, if you go to someone's house and you see your cookbook pristine, you go, oh, okay. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry.
funny that you say that, because when we very first were talking about this book and what we wanted to do, what we wanted to make, I've got like 6 or 7 friends who really cook a lot. I like the food they cook and I like the recipes they choose, and I own a lot of the same books that they do. All of them happen to be big readers and have a lot of books, and they keep some of their cookbooks in the living room or in the wherever they keep all their books, and they keep a few of them in the kitchen.
Yep.
And so when I was talking to Pete about this book, I was like, I really want to make a book. It felt presumptuous at the time, but I want to make a book that sits next to David Tanis's book and Judy Rogers' book and Shaping East. I mean, like I said, it's very presumptuous, but those are the books that are on the shelves that they're using and cooking from every day. And so, I wanted them to be like, we want to have chicken tonight. Oh, Ned's got 5 chicken recipes in this book. Maybe let's just quickly check and see if one of those will work tonight.
And I love that. Like, having the book that people use it's the biggest compliment. There is one section that I want to make sure we talk about, because I know a lot of people right now are making sandwiches, and you actually wax very beautifully about your theory about a delicious sandwich. And right. I've lost count about how many turkey and cheese sandwiches I've had since I've been working from home. 30 seconds? A minute?
Yeah, sure.
The floor is yours. Tell us your theory about sandwiches.
Well, I love sandwiches too. And here's the thing. Sandwiches are flavor, but they're also architecture, and your mouth is only so big, and the sandwich has got to fit in your mouth. That's one. So, I think the sandwich cook, it helps to think a little bit about what you're doing. So the thing's got to fit in your mouth. That's about how high it is or how wide it is. And then the bread, I did a little research and discovered this term that I actually think pertains to a lot of food. The term is indentation fructography. And it's a way to measure how much pressure it takes to break a hard surface. That would be about the bread, So if you have bread where it's really hard to break that crust, that's no fun. So I want the brittle crusted bread. That's also a concept that we use. This doesn't make it into the book, but for our French fries, like how to make a really hard but really brittle surface. So it's, crispy on the outside, but super easy to break through, like a creme brulee or something, like a good creme brulee. So
a good creme brulee. Thank you for calling. Yes, like a good creme brulee. I want to talk a little bit about design of the book, because it is a gorgeous balance of text, photography, and illustrations. And illustrations, I think, are a very delicate line to pull off well, because they could come off as a little too twee or a little too, redundant. Like, I've seen that before. But yours have this very like Mother Goose sort of avant-garde vibe to it that worked very well. So how did you decide on the layout for the book? How did you know that you wanted to combine illustrations, photography, and print? How did it all come together? And what's one of your favorite illustrations?
So the illustrations are by Gerardo Blumenkrantz, who's a Argentine madman who lives in Brooklyn and who has been involved with the restaurant from the beginning. And so we print our menus every day in the restaurant, and we have a relationship with Gerardo, who teaches at a university. I actually don't really totally understand what he teaches, but it's not illustration. So the illustrations are like what he does when he's not at work. And he says on the subway, he's been doing a lot of drawing on the sidewalk lately, where he finds, I'm totally going off, but just because I love him. On Instagram, he's splatista. So he finds like a piece of gum or a stain on the sidewalk that inspires him. And then he has chalk with him all the time. He gets down on the ground and like makes some crazy drawing around the splat. Turns out to be amazing. Anyway, that's Gerardo. So he's just been around forever, and he and I share, I think, this sort of odd, sort of self-loathing sense of humor, weird, like, most of our jokes are not fit for print or public, even most adult public, which doesn't make it into the book. Probably think everyone would be happy about that. But I just think my sensibility and his kind of run a nice parallel. I think that's why that's pretty intangible, but it's what it is. So, And then, he did in addition to doing these illustrations that are in the book, he also did the lettering, he did the cover. So I just feel lucky to know him and that he was willing to participate in the project. So it was a tricky design project, honestly, but the team was just awesome. I just really lucked out, I think. I asked, Christopher Hersheimer and Melissa Hamilton to take photographs, and that was a huge reach, I think. Anybody in the world is lucky that they would want to shoot a picture for them, and I just think their picture is so amazing. The Canal House books that are, I think, some of the best cookbooks that have ever been made, maybe less grandiose. I would just say they're my favorite cookbooks. Like, I just want to cook the food they're writing about right now, whenever I see it.
Yep.
It's the way they write about it, but also the photographs really just make you want to eat the stuff. The photograph's not about the photograph, it's about the subject. And the photographer is just awesome at what she does. So that was what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to just see food that made me want to eat it.
I mean, the food really jumps out through the photography, and you have those nice little accents with the illustrations. It really came together really well. And I want to, end on a positive note, because this is a celebration, because you did create something really nice, and it's a time to celebrate, even though it might feel weird to celebrate because it's such a rough going right now in like the entire industry. But, I got to think that there's a silver lining to all of this. And I got to think that having a cookbook like this come out is definitely going to help people get in the kitchen, or people who are maybe a month into cooking and are running out of ideas, and they see this book, they go like, okay, I feel refreshed and reinvigorated. What do you see as your own silver lining of people cooking or getting in the kitchen, or just becoming more self-confident in the food they put up for themselves or their friends or their family?
Well, I can say I'm at home with my wife and my son and my daughter, and I have to step a little bit outside of cooking even. This is as you said, it's a sad, terrible, really difficult time, emotionally, physically, financially, for many, many, many people. And I have to acknowledge that. And then following that, I would love to live like this all the time. Where I just love getting this much time with my people. Yeah. And I'm feeding them, and I love taking care of them. That's the silver lining for me. It's spending this much time with people who are most important to me.
Amazing. Well, Ned, I can't thank you enough. Congratulations. If people want to follow you or order the book, where can they go?
All the book intel is fed out through the restaurant website, which is Houseman Restaurant on Instagram. Yeah, they can go there. And they'll see some videos. I've been doing cooking videos. I'm a little clumsy so far. I steep learning curve, I hope. But I'm cooking through the book a little bit and trying to get the videos out for it.
Awesome. Well, Ned, congratulations. Thank you so much. I can guarantee you that your book will be moving into my kitchen and out of the living room. So thank you so much for writing it. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you. It's been great.
Awesome. Been great. All right. See you, bud.
Thank you. Cheers. See ya.
Chef, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to sit down with us. We really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about the restaurant or where to order the book, there's a link in the description below. It really is a fantastic read and just a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to reach out to us, please email us at gratuity@tastemade.com, and we will see you next time.